Well, I've been a person who's coached rubbish at sport all my life. I'm now 63, but I had a new colleague at work and she is a personal trainer. And I had been going to the gym for a little while, just for about a year, but never touched the free weights, always stayed with the cable machines because I didn't want to hurt myself. And anyway, just for fun, at Christmas, we went to the gym together, followed by lunch. And she said, "Oh, I'll teach you to deadlift. Let's do that just for fun." And we did. And she was very surprised that I could lift 60 kilograms on my first attempt. So we gradually moved up to 60 kilograms, but and then my hands got too sore to lift anymore. And she was trying to persuade me that this was actually very kind of unusual to be able to lift so much. But I have three sons, two of whom go to the gym, and they lift in the hundreds of kilograms. So it didn't seem like it was a very big number to me. But it was good fun. So a few weeks later, we went again, and this time I managed to get up to 100 kilograms. And my dear friend and PT, Rashida, said, "No, seriously, you are very strong. You should compete." And my boys concurred. So I went about looking for a competition near me, and I found one, but it was only going to be in 2 weeks. So I thought that probably wasn't enough preparation time. But there was going to be another one a month later up in Wales when I was going to be on holiday there. So I entered that one and I told Rashida what I'd done. And she said, oh, that's exciting. I shall come and support you. And I said, "No, you won't. You'll come and compete too." So we both entered the real qualifier for ABP, which is the Amateur British Power Union. One of the reasons I wanted to put off competing was because although I'd been learning deadlift with Rashida, there are three disciplines in the full power competition: the deadlift, the squat, and the bench press. And at the time of entering the competition, I hadn't done the other two. So I asked Rashida to quickly teach me to do those things. So I had only been doing deadlift for 14 weeks when I competed. I'd only been doing bench presses for 8 weeks and squats for 6 weeks. So this was highly ambitious, but it was supposed to be just for fun. However, there was an empty record in my division. So I did my best. I got through and I won my division. So this is my first ever medal. And lo and behold, I was waiting to hear whether other people in other qualifying competitions in my division had done a higher total than me, but lo and behold, I got the British record. So not only did I get the British record in my first competition, but I also qualified for representing Great Britain at the Europeans and to compete in the British single lifts and the British full power championships with the opportunity, or the possibility at least, of going to represent Great Britain at the Worlds. So this was extremely exciting, but also quite a lot of pressure because here I was a few weeks into powerlifting, and all of a sudden I got a competition a month for months ahead. And so Rashida and I both qualified for the single lifts, which is where you just do deadlift and you just do bench press. We both entered for both competitions, and I got gold in both of those. And because I got gold in both of those, top of my division, then I'm representing Great Britain at the World Championships in the single lifts. And then just recently went to Finland for the full power European Championships, and I won my division in that as well, and set some world and some European records whilst I was there. Well, there's a whole new community to get into. No direct opportunities to have conversations as yet, but there isn't a very obvious kind of illusion, isn't there? Because we are carrying very heavy weights, and then we're doing that to compete against one another. But the person who carried the most weight on their shoulders in the history of the universe is the Lord Jesus Christ, because he carried the weight of the sin of the whole world on his shoulders when he was on the cross. So there's a very obvious link there, and I did make a Facebook post at Easter on that along those lines. Yeah, going along and trying to get to know people, and I think as well, people who know me already know I'm a Christian, and I think this has thrown me into a new situation. But then hopefully comes through the Christ likeness, that nobody's more surprised than I'm not arrogant about it. I'm not just boasting about it. I'm just saying, well, look what happened. This is amazing. There was an incident where I kind of was a little bit tested. So I was competing, and I was competing in a particular t-shirt, and they ruled my t-shirt out of dress code because they said it had to be cotton and it wasn't a cotton shirt. So that meant I'd got the lift, but I hadn't got the record. And in that moment, I had to think about how I was going to respond to that. And what went through my head was, well, these records belong to whomever God has given them to. And I was able to then just sort of let that go and say, well, okay, well, if I can't get the records because I've got the wrong shirt and I don't have a cotton shirt with me, then that's how it's going to be. It doesn't affect my enjoyment. It doesn't affect my identity or anything of that nature. As it turned out, they managed to find a cotton t-shirt that they were happy with and lent it to me, and I was able to get the records. But that was kind of a testing moment, because although I'm a mature Christian, I've not been in competitive sport before. This is a very, very new world and a set of challenges, because it somehow is very different in the sense that, so I'm a mathematician. If I learn calculus on Wednesday, I can still do calculus on Thursday, I can still do calculus on Friday. But physically, sometimes you just can't, and there's no rhyme or reason for it. It's just very kind of up and down. So you can't say, well, I could lift this yesterday or last week. Why can't I lift it today? And so there's always that kind of uncertainty you're hanging around with. And I think that does make people feel vulnerable, actually. But I've decided that, since my focus in work is statistics, what I'm going to think about is, well, actually, all I've got to do is give myself the best probability of having a good day and leave it with the Lord. Well, there are lots of parallels, aren't there, in the Bible? Because I mean, the Apostle Paul talks about running the Christian race, running according to the rules. He talks about running in such a way as to win. I don't think anybody goes to the Olympics thinking, oh, I'd really like to come last. Everybody wants to come first in our heart of hearts. For some people, they think, well, actually, it's unlikely, not unless everybody falls down ahead of me. But nevertheless, it's a great privilege to represent your country. So I think for ordinary Christians, sort of taking those gospel opportunities and saying, how it is to persevere, and admiring the perseverance of the athletes who've had to dig in for many, many years, and how they feel about, falling over in the middle of the race and not making the end, or those kind of extreme emotions where you've invested so much. But we invest as Christians, don't we? We call it living for Christ, and the Apostle Paul again says, if we believe just for this life, we are to be pitied about, over all people, because the investment we're making is for eternity. So whatever your interest is, lean into that interest and have those conversations, but be ready to think about how that connects to your faith.